Welcome back to Racing Rundown. On today's video, we're going to be discussing the Grade 2 Mother Goose Stakes at Belmont Park. This is a mile and a 16th, and this is a race that I normally wouldn't cover on Racing Rundown because it's a 5-horse field, and the race is really one-dimensional, but I thought it's worth discussing because I think this race is going to be very impactful as we go on later into the year with some of the big Grade 1s. 4 3-year-old fillies left on the calendar, races like the Coaching Club American Oaks, the Alabama, and the Cotillion even later on in the year, and even for some of the races, if these horses ever end up trying older females. And since that this is a one-turn race, and there's horses in here who will be going one turn, you're likely to see horses from this race end up in some of the big races for 3-year-old fillies around one turn, most notably the Test Stakes. So that's why I'm taking the time to cover this. We're going to move on to the first horse in this race, which is Make Mischief. This filly has been very consistent in her career. 11 starts, only 4 wins, but she's been in the money 9 of 11 times in her career, which is something very good. Only one of those starts, or one of those 2 starts, I should say, that she was out of the money in. That was around 2 turns, which this filly obviously doesn't want to do given her past performances. The other one was in the Busher, where I think she was just facing a lot tougher competition. After that, though, she won an allowance race, and then she had a really, really good run in the 8 Bells Stakes on Derby Day. That was a race that the early part of that race, the pace absolutely melted down, as the 8 Bells as a race in its history has tended to do. She got a very nice rail trip in that, saved a lot of ground. Horses moved off the rail, and she was able to run a really good third-place finish in there, but she wasn't able to get the win in that race. She also did come back on Belmont Stakes Day, and she ran a good third in the Acorn. But again, that was a race. I don't really know how good of an effort that was, considering that, Search Results was really just winning that race by however much she wanted to. And Obligatory was certainly, who was better than her on Derby Day, was also better than her. So she's limited, but she is consistent. And, there's not going to be much of an underneath wager in this race. So I don't really think that she can win. I think that the number 2 and 3 horses, who we'll get to in a moment, are better than her. So I would stay away from her in this race, but she's a filly to look out for in some of the graded stakes going forward, one turn up at Saratoga and later on in the year, because I think she can factor there. Number 2 in this race is Always Carina. This is the probably the favorite in the race, one of Chad Brown's really good 3-year-old fillies. So we talked about Search Results a minute ago. There's a lot of people that think really highly of this horse, and rightfully so. Always Carina, in her first 2 career starts, and only 2 career starts, has been brilliant. A very nice maiden breaking effort. She won that race by 4, and then she got her second career win in an allowance race, which was a race where she won by 9 3/4 lengths. Again, it's not like that race was really hard for her, but she did win it very impressively, and she does deserve the credit for that. She certainly has done nothing wrong in her career. She's a rightful favorite, I think, even though I prefer the horse who I think is going to be the second choice in this race. The 2 problems that I have with her is, I'm not sure how far she wants to go, because she seems like one of these Chad Brown horses that can do very well around one turn. She reminds me a lot of Guarana from a couple years ago. You remember Chad Brown won a couple of Grade 1s with that filly. She won the Acorn and the Coaching Club American Oaks, and, if what I said is true, Guarana was able to win up to a mile and an 1/8, even though she was a filly who was probably better around one turn. So that certainly means that the one turn is not going to be what gets, I'm sorry, the mile and a 16th is not going to be what gets Always Carina here. I'm just going to take a shot against her, just because I think that the price is going to be a little bit too short on her. I don't know how good she really is. She is unproven, and I'm going to side with a horse that I've been high on for a very long time, and I think is a really good horse in her own right, and that is the number 3 Clarier in this race. Again, another really consistent horse. In 5 career starts, she's hit the board every single time. She's coming out of a 4th place finish in the Kentucky Oaks, and you would think that was a disappointing effort, given what she had done in her career, 2 wins in 2 seconds, but I would argue that that's not the case. So obviously we know how good the top 2 in that race is. Malathot, who, if you watch the show regularly, you know how high everyone on this program is with Malathot. Search Results, I just said that she won the Acorn by however much she wanted to. She's going to be really tough to beat later on in the year. And then, going back to 3rd, Will Seeker is a very consistent horse through the early part of the year, and Clarier only lost to her by a nose. So she's beaten 3 lengths at the end of the race by the 2 best 3-year-old fillies in the country, and she's a nose away from being 3rd in that race. So really, really liked the performance I got from Clarier in the Kentucky Oaks, and I always said she's going to be better the longer they go. She didn't win the Kentucky Oaks because I don't think she was as good as the horses like Malathot or Search Results, but This is a mile and a 16. She's already won over the distance. Yes, it is one turn, but I think that she is going to be fine at this, and she's definitely a horse that I would say for the long run. Coaching Club American Oaks, Alabama, Malathot is probably going to be headlining those races, but Clarier is a horse who I think is going to run some really nice races later on in the year, and I'm going to pick her in here just because I like her a little bit more than Always Carina. I got the stakes experience, and I have the consistency, and not that Always Carina isn't a consistent horse, but I like Clarier just a little bit more in here. The number 4 horse in here, is Zagel for trainer Todd Pletcher. Another filly that I would say, like Make Mischief, is one to look out for races later on in the year, going one turn. She's 2 for 2 undefeated going one turn, including having a graded stakes win in the Forward Gal Stakes at Gulfstream. She broke her maiden very impressively. The concern, though, with Zagel is I don't think she's as good as the other fillies in here. She got beat very handily in the Fairgrounds Oaks by Clarier, who's in this race. But even still, she broke her maiden by 7 lengths, and the Forward Gal wasn't that great of a field. And she regressed very much from her first career start to her second start. Now, I should say, put that with a little bit of a caveat, because Hole Bodemeister did come back and pull off a huge upset in the Devona Dale Stakes, but I don't really know how good of a horse Hole Bodemeister really is. We haven't seen her since then. So I think Zagel is a rather limited horse, and one that I would say is more of a long play. I think, though, she is interesting when she gets back to the 7 furlongs, because she was really good going 7 furlongs in the early part of the year. And the final horse in this race is Illigami for trainer Rusty Arnold. She's coming out of 2 consecutive wins, and those were okay wins. They weren't spectacular, and I think that she certainly is the longest shot horse in the race. Even if she isn't the longest priced horse on the board, I think that she is the one that I would give the least chance to win this race. It's not that her last 2 races were bad, but they weren't against the greatest of competition. And when you're going up against fillies like Always Carina and Clarier, who have been so good in their career and what they've been doing, I think that it's a big step up for her, and I'm not willing to take that chance with her in here. So I'm going to take a pass on her. Like I mentioned, this is a very one-dimensional race. You're not going to have much in terms of betting in here. It's just a matter of who do you like more between Always Carina and Clarier. I like Clarier more so than Always Carina, but it's quite possible you like Always Carina more so than I do. She certainly has a big chance to win the race, and it'll be interesting to see who wins this and what the implications are in this race going forward in the year. So thank you for stopping by for this short one-dimensional preview. We're going to have a couple more previews for a couple of the Breeders' Cup Challenge races at Churchill Downs this weekend, and we also have an Ohio Derby preview, which is the best betting race of the weekend of the graded stakes races. So be sure to check those out, and we will see you next time when we have more graded stakes previews. Have a good one. We'll see you then.